Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're here in Yeshivat Chut Shel Chesed under the guidance of Rabbi Shalom Arush, and we continue our series of Rabbi Nachman's stories. Today we're in this story called the 13 Beggars. The 7 Beggars. This is the 13th story. So, the 7 beggars, each one has some sort of deficiency, so to speak, which we find out that they're not really lacking. In this 13th story, it starts off a little different. It starts off that there was a king, and he gave over his kingdom to his son, and then the story sort of like went on a tangent. But Nachman never really finished this story, because as the students teach us that the revelation of the end of the story would be the end of time. So hopefully we get through the story, and when Mashiach comes, we could say, hey, what's the rest of the story? We're waiting for the end of the story. So the story deviates, and it goes to a different story, so to speak, where there is a boy and a girl, and they were lost in a forest, and they ended up marrying. And before they got married, there was different people that helped them out along the way, different beggars. And during their Sheva Berachot, during the 7 days after their marriage, each day a different beggar would come and visit them. They would say, hi, we wish we could see and we wish we could rejoice with so-and-so. So on the first day it was the one that was blind. And he taught them how he really wasn't blind, just how this whole world didn't look like anything to him. There was nothing, he didn't want to connect himself to this world. So we're up to this part, it's called the second day. And this takes place on the second day of the 7 days of celebration of the Sheva Berachot. The couple began to remember the second beggar. Which one was that? That was the deaf one who had sustained them and given them bread. For remember, we said that the beggars were tzaddikim, they were righteous men. And they were called beggars because they begged to Hashem for everything that they need. They used prayer. Now this one was deaf. They wept and they yearned, and we said, how can we bring here the deaf beggar who sustained us? While they were yearning for him, he suddenly appeared and said, here I am. He fell on them and kissed them. This is also another thing, maybe we said it, maybe we didn't, but when you think about somebody, when you yearn for something, sometimes you could be talking about somebody. It might even happen when you're talking bad about somebody, but all of a sudden that person's going to pass by. This is a phenomenon that happens in this world. He then said to them, now I will give you a gift, that you should be like me. You should live a good life like mine. They were a little bit nervous, right? This guy was deaf, right? He said, I originally gave you this as a blessing, but now as your wedding present, I am giving you this as an unrestricted gift. This is for you. Now, you think that I'm deaf, so you're all a little bit worried about this type of gift. I am not deaf at all, but the whole world does not amount to anything to me that I should listen to its shortcomings. It didn't even pay attention. He didn't even give any attention to the lackings of this world, because everyone here is going to be lacking. We're all lacking something, but he wasn't lacking anything because he just zoned out of it. Similar to the blind beggar who didn't want to see this world. This deaf beggar didn't want to hear all the complaints and all the crying that people had. Said all sounds come from deficiencies, since everyone cries out because of what he is lacking. Even all the joys of the world are the result of lacks, since it's only because one has had a lack. And now you rejoice when the lack is filled, right? Someone wasn't married for a long time. Finally, they're married. Oh, they're so happy. They're telling everyone how happy they are. Someone didn't have children. Someone didn't have parnasah. Whatever the lacking is, all of a sudden you get that thing. Oh, you're making so much noise. The deaf beggar says, all this noise is really just all goes back to a lack. I have a good life where nothing is lacking. I have the word of the land of wealth, that I live the good life. It says here that his good life was that he had bread to eat and water to drink. This is a high level. This is similar to like the man. A great tzaddik is able to eat simple food and taste everything. Might recall the story of the simpleton, where the simpleton, he ate bread and he had water, and he told his wife, wow, this is the best steak, and wow, this is the greatest beer I ever had, right? So he said, where do I get my my haskama? Where do I get my the word that I am a person that lives a good life. So he says there was a land that had lots of wealth and great treasures. Once the people got together and each one began to boast about how he lived the good life. Each one related exactly what kind of good life he had. I spoke up and said, I am living a good life that is better than your good life. If you want proof, let me tell you about a certain land. If you are truly living a good life, let's see if you can save this land. Now, what happened to this land? This land had a garden. This garden had fruit, which had every taste in the world. It also had every fragrance in the world. It also had every sight in the world, every color and every kind of flower. Everything was in that garden. There was a gardener in charge of this garden. Because of that garden, the people of the land lived a good life. The most prettiest garden in the world. Smelled great. The taste, the color. The gardener then vanished. With no one tending the garden, everything in the garden naturally withered and died. Nevertheless, the people were still able to live from the wild plants that grew in the garden. A cruel king then attacked the land, but he was not able to do anything to the people. He therefore decided to ruin the good life that the land had from the garden. However, he did not ruin the garden itself. Instead, he left 3 groups of servants. So this evil king, so to speak, the evil one, the evil inclination, he realized that all good is happening from this garden, even though the garden is not flourishing like it used to be. But all the good and their security, so to speak, is because they have this garden. And it's because they lived around this garden. Now, he said, I'm going to get rid of this. How is he going to do it? He put 3 groups of servants. He ordered them to follow his instruction and thus ruined the people's sense of taste. As a result of what they did, whenever anyone tasted anything, it had the taste of a rotten carcass. Really gross. They also ruined the sense of smell. Every fragrance that the people smelled, they had the stench of chilbena. This was the bad part in the incense. It was like could be chilbe or something like that. Fenugreek. They also destroyed the sense of sight. They dimmed the people's eyes. If they were covered with clouds and mist, they couldn't see straight. All this was done at the cruel king's command. Now, if you are truly living the good life, let's see if you can save them. I am telling you this because if you do not save them, then the damage that has stricken this land can also harm you. Which is, if you're going to go close and you're going to start to fix them and it doesn't work for you, that means you cannot fix them. If it harms you, if it affects you. The wealthy people set off toward the land, and I also went with them. While traveling, each one lived the good life in his way, since each one had taken along his treasures. So they were comfortable while they were traveling, even though they weren't home. But as they traveled, however, as soon as they came near the land, their sense of taste began to go bad. They so began to feel other things were also spoiling for them. I said to them, you have not even entered the land yet, and your sense of taste is ruined. What will happen once you actually get there? How will you be able to save them? I then took my bread and water and gave some to them. As soon as they tasted my bread and water, their sense of taste was remedied. The same was true of the sense of smell and the like. Now, just to give a little bit of idea, what's this whole idea of a garden? Now, it's brought down in Kabbalah and the Zohar. Even Rabbi Nachman talks about this idea, how there is a gardener. And in the garden is not, it might sound like it's a garden of flowers and sight and smell, but really it's souls. And there's a gardener, this is the Sadiq, this is the righteous person of the generation, the spiritual leader that cares for every single person, giving them the right amount of, this plant needs this much water, this needs this much shade, this one needs sun. Every single person is different. Every single person needs a certain amount of love. Every single person needs a certain amount of discipline. Everyone is different. Now there's the Sadiq that knows how to take care of every single person. Now if the Sadiq goes away, then the garden's just gonna wither and die, right? So this beggar was going to fix it. He wanted to go and find the gardener and restore this garden, because once there's a gardener and there's a garden, then everyone could have what they need. And if everyone's okay spiritually, then all these things of the taste and the smell all have its root in spirituality. All right, we'll stop here for today. We're in the middle of the second day, and may Hashem help us to continue this story, this part of the story, the segment of the story, and to continue this last story, the 13th story of Rabbi Nachman's stories. And may we be able to get everything we can get out of these stories to wake up from our sleep and to connect to the real gardener of our generation. Amen. Thank you for watching. Catch you next time.